All right, plenty of movement has been generated this week in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. Talked to John Lynch about the interest that Deebo Samuel has been drawing. The 49ers have confirmed that they are trying to trade him a few weeks after Deebo Samuel made that request. And we've got more and more intel pouring in that a trade might be imminent. This is from Matthew Berry. He publishes a late night rumors at the Combine column. He says it's going to come out next week. One rumor may be out of date by the time that the article publishes. Deebo Samuel might be traded very soon. We do know that multiple teams are interested in Deebo. I can confirm this from Indianapolis as well. Intel collected there. The Commanders are one of the teams that is interested, and this is straight from D'Amico Ryans. The Texans are interested as well. So maybe one of the benefits that the 49ers enjoy from having their coaching staffs, their executives spread out across the league is that when one of their successful players is on the trading block, you might be getting interest from teams who are familiar with him from his time with the 49ers. The Washington Commanders, their GM is Adam Peters. Guess what? Adam Peters drafted Deebo Samuel, executive for the 49ers, back in 2019 when San Francisco picked Deebo out of South Carolina. By the way, how about Nick Emanwari, the safety, also out of South Carolina? Didn't overlap there with Deebo Samuel, but we'll talk about him a little bit later. So far, a perfect 10 at relative athletic score. Second straight day that we've seen a perfect 10. Day after Shamar Stewart delivered, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M. But the safety, Emanwari, running a 4.4 at 220. I mean, just insane size speed stuff today. And you talk about insane size speed stuff. Deebo Samuel has been able to deliver that balance for the 49ers over the years. And unfortunately, the 2024 season obviously wasn't nearly as good. We could talk about the multitude of reasons behind that, but there's just a general fit for the 49ers that has become less efficient. And San Francisco is going for complete cost efficiency. They're looking to retool the wide receiver room to make sure that it matches Brock Purdy. Deebo Samuel is more of a bulldozer than he is a separator. But there are still teams in the league, especially the teams influenced by the 49ers way of thinking, the ones that are now run by ex-49ers leadership, who would naturally be interested in the bulldozer-like mentality and the playmaking ability of Deebo Samuel. And that's what we're seeing happening right now. So a trade could be happening over the course, maybe even over the next couple days. We have talked about this for weeks now, ever since Deebo Samuel made the request and the 49ers decided to oblige it. We knew very, very soon after the request was made that San Francisco would be looking for a trade partner here. We said that the NFL Combine could be the time when things pick up because the agents and the executives, all the teams are going to be in the same spot, right? And Deebo Samuel wants a new contract. At the very heart of this, Deebo Samuel's entering a lame duck year on his deal. And the 49ers don't want to extend him, at least at the price that he'd be interested in being extended at. So he requested a trade. And the 49ers are willing to oblige it because they think they can recoup some capital in this instance. The 49ers' bid to recoup capital here will not come cheap on the 2025 cap. There is a cost to this in the short run for the 49ers, but there also are savings in the long run for San Francisco. And they deem the savings in the long run and the draft capital that they might be able to procure for a trade to be worth it. The financial implications of a potential trade of Deebo Samuel are illustrated here. This is the current contract, and I'll explain how all this works. 2025, obviously the final year under contract, but what the 49ers have done, very prolifically, I should add, is stretch a lot of the Deebo Samuel cap hits out into void years. You see void years here. They've stretched out the cap hits far into the future because by NFL rule, any money that is in a signing bonus or an option bonus is going to be spread out for up to 5 years against the salary cap. The 49ers have parked this money, which has already been paid out to Deebo Samuel in the signing bonus column. They've parked it as far as the cap hits go into the future. They've stretched it out multiple seasons. The signing bonus money stretches out to 2028. Then there's option bonus money that Deebo Samuel is due to receive. There's another option bonus coming in on March 22nd that is stretched out 5 more years to 2029. If the 49ers do not trade Deebo Samuel by March 22nd, they will have to make a decision on the option. The option's about $15.4 million. If they say no to the option will turn into base salary for the 2025 season, which is not guaranteed. So if Deebo isn't traded for whatever reason within the next 3 weeks, the 49ers will almost certainly not pick up the option because the plan is to move on from Deebo Samuel this offseason, and they'll maintain the flexibility financially, but the money will be set as base salary. You don't pay out base salary until the regular season starts. So nothing here is right. Nothing here in this contract is guaranteed for Deebo Samuel moving forward at any point, which is why he wants a new deal. The 49ers have him under contract for 2025 at the following numbers: a $1.17 million base salary. The signing and option bonuses, well, the option bonus would kick in on March 22nd, but that would move into base salary of $15.4 million. If it doesn't kick in as option bonus, a $750,000 per game roster bonus and a $200,000 workout bonus. An acquiring team would pick up the $15.4 million in either option bonus or in base salary, plus the $1.17 million currently in base salary, and about $950,000 in bonus money. It all adds up to about $17 to 18 million that a new team would acquire for Deebo Samuel, but obviously he would want a new contract because the whole point of this maneuvering from his perspective is to earn some financial security beyond this season. The 49ers would ultimately be in a position where they save $17 million in the long run, but they would have to absorb $31 million in the short run against the salary cap. So these are two very different things, and people are getting them conflated. But the money that Deebo Samuel is owed in the future, and I could hide my video very quickly so you could see this. The money that Deebo Samuel has been paid but is owed on the salary cap in the future from the prorations of the signing bonus and the option bonus. If the 49ers do trade him, by rule, everything that they've stiff-armed into as far as 2029 would accelerate and hit the cap now in 2025. And the grand total would be $31.5 million. Samuel's cap hit is currently $15.9 million. It would grow to $31.5 million with a trade because the 49ers would have to shoulder all of the costs that they're going to take over the course of the next several seasons now. But salary cap space, if it is unused, carries over from season to season. So the 49ers have enough cap space. I projected them to have $61 million on a 53-man cap. They have enough cap space to shoulder about 15 or 16 more million from Deebo Samuel now, if it means getting draft capital back. You can also cut him with a post-June 1st designation, and what that would do is it would push the cap damage and keep it at bay into future years. So the salary cap hit for Deebo Samuel this season would be only about $10 million, and the 49ers actually would open up about $5 million of 2025 room because his current hit is what I told you. It's about $15.8 million. But San Francisco has enough money to shoulder the dead money hit now. They have enough money to shoulder it this season, and they would take on that cap hit sooner if they were able to receive draft compensation that made it worth their while. The Commanders and Texans have had very significant interest in trading for Deebo Samuel, and other teams, including the Steelers and the Broncos, have also checked in. This is according to Jordan Schultz. But as we've said, the Commanders and the Texans have been the most interested. The Commanders with Adam Peters as their general manager, Jaden Daniels as their quarterback, and the Texans with DeMeco Ryans as their head coach. Ryans even openly said at the NFL Combine that he really likes Deebo Samuel as a player. He lit up when Matt Barrows asked him about Deebo Samuel and the potential of him heading to Houston. So the 49ers have granted permission for Samuel and his camp to seek this trade, which is why we see, I think, a little bit more open talking about this one than, say, the Brandon Ayuk situation, which happened before the start of the 2024 regular season. A lot more surreptitious activity in that situation because Ayuk's camp wasn't authorized to go out and talk, but the 49ers were in a position where they could obviously discuss potentially dealing Brandon Ayuk. Ultimately, they re-signed Ayuk. It's funny because a lot of people were speculating that Brandon Ayuk might be headed to the Washington Commanders last offseason when he was showing up to podcasts and to different appearances with his former college teammate at ASU, Jaden Daniels. Well, now the Commanders and the Houston Texans seem to be in the lead for a trade involving a 49ers wide receiver, but his name is not Brandon Ayuk. It's Deebo Samuel. So what a difference a few months can make. It's February 28th now. This was all going down in August of 2024. So about half a year has really changed the calculus as far as which 49ers receiver is going to stay put and which 49ers receiver might get traded. And it is very, very possible that a trade of Deebo Samuel is imminent. That's why we're covering our bases right now, talking about the potential teams who have been interested. We've learned a lot over the course of the NFL Combine. And as we talk about the fact that Adam Peters was part of the 49ers brass when Deebo Samuel was drafted, as we talk about the differences between a trade, which would be more expensive on the 2025 cap, but ultimately would save the 49ers money in the long run and maybe even net them some valuable draft capital. As we talk about the differences between a trade and an outright release, which could come with that post-June 1st designation, but would not include any draft capital coming back to the 49ers, we can also reflect on the past as we do all of this. And I think it's really important, if Deebo Samuel does get traded, that people appreciate the impact that he had with San Francisco over the past several seasons. They drafted him in 2019. That was coming off of the Senior Bowl where the 49ers coaching staff was in charge of one of the teams. They were 4-12 in 2018. 49ers were 4-12, and they were looking to imprint a physical identity. And 2017 and 2018 had a few high points, especially 2017, the final 5-game stretch with Jimmy Garoppolo at the helm. But the 49ers were never a great running team in those early 2 years. And the yards after the catch, which was so important for Kyle Shanahan to establish with an attitude against the downsizing league. We see the league getting so fast and smaller along the defensive side of the football. That was something that the 49ers had really struggled to imprint over the first 2 years of this regime. Then they discovered Deebo Samuel, and they got to coach him at the Senior Bowl, and he dominated the Senior Bowl, and they used a second-round draft pick in 2019 on him. He immediately was able to help transform the DNA of the offense. And I just got done watching some highlights of Deebo Samuel from that 2021 season when he was in his ultimate prime. First off, the highlight reel is like 20 minutes long. For one player's highlight reel from a single season to be that long, he made a lot of big plays. And there was some that I even forgot. I mean, from early in the season, there was the long catch against the Detroit Lions. But then there was a spot where the 49ers were driving against the Philadelphia Eagles. This was Nick Sirianni's first year as head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. And the 49ers were really struggling. It was a road game, week 2. They hadn't scored a single point in the first half, and there was only a minute to go before the break. And Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback, and he found Deebo Samuel on a crossing route. that turned into a 50-plus yard game that got the 49ers going. They ultimately beat Philadelphia in that game. It was a tough one. It was a slog, but they needed that spark, and Deebo Samuel gave it to them. I cannot count the amount of times that Deebo Samuel gave the 49ers a spark when they needed it. And as I was watching this 2021 highlight reel, it happened time and time and time again. I mean, the season was essentially extinct against the Chicago Bears. The 49ers were facing 3rd and 20. They threw that little screen pass out to Deebo Samuel, and he turned it into an 80-yard gain. Ruled a touchdown on the field, but then I think they called it back to the 1-inch line, and Garoppolo ran it in himself. That turned around the whole season for San Francisco. Big play after big play. There were more down the stretch. Of course, against the Green Bay Packers in the snow, he had the run on 3rd and 6. I mean, Deebo delivered for the 49ers, and he was that spark plug that they needed to reverse momentum several times. So I think that it's important to sit back and appreciate how good of a player we did get to watch. I mean, I have covered the 49ers throughout the entire Shanahan era, and Deebo Samuel was unique for them. And I will say that he's been unique in the context of NFL history. I run a lot of these advanced stats, and we talk a lot about the yards after catch and the yards after contact. No receiver has ever come close to averaging what Deebo Samuel has averaged after contact. And it is this bulldozer ability that appealed to the 49ers, handing the ball off to Deebo Samuel in the backfield. You know, that versatility that he's showcased between receiver and running back. It's that versatility that helped take the 49ers offense, positionless skill position philosophy, to new levels over the past few seasons. We can take a look at some of the statistics. I know that Pro Football Reference does such a good job really putting everything under one hood here. Let's get this up on the screen as we talk about the Deebo Samuel trade, which may be imminent. We can scroll through a lot of this and appreciate that 2021 season, which I'm highlighting right here. I mean, look at this. Well, of course, 1,405 receiving yards for Deebo Samuel. Go to the rushing yards as well, 365 of those. So he's nearly at 2,000 yards from scrimmage. I think that he returned a few kicks that year, so he might have been over 2,000 all-purpose yards, which is impressive as hell. But 18.2 yards per reception, which is just silly. The rushing yardage, too, he was at a very healthy, I'm looking for the yards per attempt, 6.2 yards per attempt. And that's what's really declined for Deebo Samuel over the course of the past year. He was down to 3.2 yards per rush for San Francisco in 2000. It's running these comparisons for me. I got to just take this off of the screen, and we'll take 2021 off. Go to 2024. See, it went down from 6.2 to 5.5, 6.1 yards per carry in 2023, down to 3.2 yards per rush in 2024. Now, I would argue a lot of people said, oh, this is because Deebo Samuel has just fallen off a cliff physically. I don't think that was why in 2024. I think that we still saw a lot of the burst that made Deebo as good as he was from 2019 to 2023. We saw it on the kick returns for the 49ers. We saw a couple big plays from him in the pass game as well. I think that what we saw was a stylistic struggle of the 49ers offense. That obviously the injuries were the primary impetus behind this. But with Brock Purdy at quarterback, San Francisco was fundamentally operating in a different way than they had in years prior, especially as Brock Purdy grew into his role as the 49ers QB1. Much more off-schedule activity, a bigger reliance on the intermediate to deep timing game. And without Brandon Ayuk available for most of the season, without Christian McCaffrey available for most of the season, the 49ers were really in a spot where the separation and the generating of space on the field was coming at a much bigger struggle than it had in years prior. And Deebo Samuel is not a pure separator. Deebo Samuel is a specialty weapon in that He's averaged the highest yards after contact from a receiver that we've ever seen ever since it's been tracked in the NFL. That's been a quarter century at this point. He's delivered in a physical way that is absolutely unique to the receiver position. And because of that, he has become, he's a hammer for the 49ers. He's been such a unique weapon, but the hammer has been a perfect addition to the separators. The 49ers didn't have the separators in 2024, so Deebo had to be in a separator type role, and it just didn't work out. The 49ers were working with such limited space on the offensive side of the football. In fact, they finished, and I've cited this stat so many times, dead last in average yards of separation at the time of catch or incompletion. So the efficiency numbers just plummeted for Deebo Samuel. Obviously, the success rate receiving-wise wasn't good, down to 41%, which was a career low. The yards per rush, which I think is indicative of how much space the 49ers offense is working with, dropped to 3.2 yards per rush. And as a whole, this just wasn't the fit that it had been in the past when the 49ers were firing on all cylinders offensively. So they've looked at this, and they've looked at Brock Purdy's tendencies, the receivers that best match up with Purdy, the separators that they need downfield. They see that they still succeeded against zone coverage this past year, but man coverage was a huge problem. The 49ers are saying we, at all costs, need to find a way to separate better. And we don't see Deebo Samuel as the type of weapon, especially at this stage in his career, that's going to be able to efficiently do that, especially at the price that he's likely to command. So they want to move off of Deebo Samuel a year too early, or I should say a year early, not a year too early. Last year might have been the ideal year as far as commanding a big trade return. 49ers hope that they can still command some trade return this season. That was John Lynch's hope when he spoke at the Combine a couple days ago. Those of you just joining, a Deebo Samuel trade might be imminent. This was from Matthew Berry. He says that the Commanders are one of the teams that's very interested in Deebo Samuel. We know that the Houston Texans are another team that is very interested in Deebo Samuel. We are talking about the balance that the 49ers must play between the decision to trade Deebo and to cut him. It is more expensive on the cap in the short term to trade him. But guess what carries a lot of value? Draft compensation. What might the 49ers command for Deebo Samuel? I think a 5th-round pick would be legitimate draft compensation, but there are people talking about something higher than that. A 3rd-round pick, maybe on a conditional basis. I think that would be an absolute steal for the 49ers. Deebo Samuel's 29 years old. He's entering the final year of his contract. He's going to need a new deal. The 49ers have already made it clear that he's very, very likely not going to be on the team next year. When that's the scenario, it is hard to recoup huge trade value for a player. So I think something in the middle rounds is the best the 49ers and their fans can possibly hope for at this point. But they're doing this from the perspective of financial efficiency. They're going to save $17 million at a time where $17 million can come in really handy for the 49ers. They're looking at the salary cap in the long-term perspective because they have to sign Brock Purdy, and then they have to find a way to build an efficient roster around Brock Purdy. So when you look at some of the savings moves the 49ers might make this offseason, they might move off of some B-list players this offseason, some of their second-tier players, the veterans who are commanding contracts who they believe are not cost-efficient. You could look at somebody like Leonard Floyd, and the 49ers can probably save a good $6 million moving off Leonard Floyd. I'm not saying they will move off of Leonard Floyd, but that's going to be a cost-cutting juncture for San Francisco. So if you look at Leonard Floyd, you look at Malik Collins, Yetur Gross-Matos, I know I'm sticking with the defensive linemen right now, but that's where most of the second-tier players are, where some of the savings might exist for the 49ers. All of those guys, moving on from them, stands to save the 49ers somewhere between $4 to $8 million per player. The case of Deebo Samuel, it stands to save them $17 million. $17 million is a big chunk of change given the situation that the 49ers are in now. I wrote about all this on the San Francisco Standard, so you guys can have a look. This is the State of the 49ers wide receiver edition. You can see Deebo there in the back on the right. And this was already 18 days ago. How Deebo Samuel's likely departure changes the 49ers wide receiver plans. I can go to some data here for you. We can go to the yards per route run, which I think is a really, really solid way of looking at efficiency within the context of an offense. So you can see above average is blue, below average is red. Deebo Samuel, after being a consistent above average yards per route run receiver, was below the league average in 2024. He was not efficiently integrated into the offense anymore for San Francisco. Just the way it was. Juwan Jennings was efficiently integrated into Brock Purdy's offense. George Kittle, he's been efficiently integrated every single season. For Deebo Samuel, it was much tougher sledding for San Francisco. And of course, we saw the struggles in real life. These are just numbers, but we saw this happen in real life. Against the Rams, after Deebo Samuel had said that he should be getting the ball more often and he'd be producing more if the ball was headed his way at a more regular basis, well, he dropped what probably would have been the game-winning touchdown pass. Perfect strike from Brock Purdy. And at that point, I think that the writing was on the wall for what was going to happen moving forward because, throughout this entire 2-year cycle, the 49ers literally drafted Ricky Pearsall. They used a first-round pick on a receiver last April. And when that happened, it was eminently clear that they were not going to be able to keep several highly paid receivers plus their first-round rookie for the long term. What they said in 2024 was, well, Deebo Samuel, if we get a good enough offer that convinces us to move off of him, we'll do it, but we'll try to keep him for 2024. Brandon Ayuk hadn't been re-signed yet at the time in 2024, but they ultimately did re-sign Brandon Ayuk. So the plan, even when they drafted Ricky Pearsall, was to keep Brandon Ayuk for the long term and then keep Deebo Samuel as long as they could, with the recognition that that would probably only be a short-term retention of the receiver who was so good for them in that 2021 season, but has since not delivered play at quite that level. So they retained Deebo Samuel for 2024. The replacement, Ricky Pearsall, delivered a good season in 2024. I mean, he got shot in the chest on August 31st, bounced back from that to deliver as a rookie, and then was targeted 18 times over the final 2 games. I'd say that's impressive on Pearsall's part. I think that combined with Deebo's drop against the Rams, which really punctuated an viciously frustrating season for Deebo Samuel, that sent us the clear signal that the 49ers would almost certainly try to move on from Deebo Samuel this offseason. And then the exit interview happened, and then we found out about the exit interview a few weeks after it, and supposedly Deebo Samuel asked for the trade during the exit interview. Whether he asked for the trade first or if it was the 49ers who told him that they were planning to move off of him, that can remain up for debate. It could have been a preemptive strike from Deebo Samuel, knowing the direction that the 49ers were going in here. The point is that both sides felt that it was time to move on, given the declining play and given the evolving financial nature of how the 49ers are constructed, with Ricky Pearsall now aboard and Brandon Ayuk. The 49ers are counting on him to come back in 2025. Both sides realized that the time for a divorce was here. And that's where we stand right now, with the 49ers trying to recoup as much capital as they can from the dissolution of Deebo Samuel's contract with this football team. So, I mean, we could sit here and we can appreciate everything that's happened. And there's been a lot of highs for the 49ers and Deebo Samuel over the past few years. We can sit here and we can appreciate all of that while simultaneously acknowledging that it was time for the 49ers and Deebo Samuel to move on. And that's why the trade talks are in an advanced state with the Commanders and the Texans leading the way. Jordan Schultz also reported that the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Denver Broncos have expressed interest in Deebo Samuel. Steelers, they're interesting because they've always tried to build themselves as the physical team. We talk about Deebo Samuel being more of a bulldozer than a separator. Well, the Steelers seem to like bulldozers. The Denver Broncos I like because Sean Payton is an advanced offensive mind, and he's probably seen what Kyle Shanahan has done. Countless times we've seen Shanahan copy Sean Payton's play calls, and I'm sure that Sean Payton has copied Kyle Shanahan's play calls. Well, why wouldn't you want somebody who brings the adaptability that Deebo Samuel brings to the table? The price has to be right, and acquiring teams probably believe that they can get Deebo Samuel at the right financial parameters to make his acquisition worth it. Now, whether or not they find the right trade compensation with the 49ers is what's ultimately going to determine if and when a trade is consummated. But I did show the salary cap impact of Deebo Samuel's departure on the 49ers, and in the same breath, we can look at what an acquiring team would be picking up, and that's going to be the basis for negotiations of a new contract. $1.17 million in base salary plus the option bonus of $15.4 million, which will vest into base salary if it's not picked up by March 22nd. So that's 15.4 plus 1.17. That's a good 16.5, 16.6 million. And then you add the $950,000 in bonus money, per game roster bonus and workout bonus money. That takes you to the 17 to $18 million range for Deebo Samuel. Remember that receivers now are going for over $30 million in the NFL. So if another team can acquire Deebo at a base price of about $17 million and negotiate a new contract from there, I think that would be a pretty damn good deal for a potential new team. Maybe a new deal includes a year of guaranteed money, a second year with a vested guarantee coming in March of 2026. It lasts until age 30 for Deebo Samuel. I think that could be something that works for both sides and maybe even allows the 49ers to come away with a little bit of draft compensation in a situation that they're obviously trying to move on from. So times change. John Lynch talked about it the other day, and the time for a divorce with Deebo Samuel, it appears that it has come for the 49ers. I'm going to answer some questions. As this does appear to be coming closer, we can reminisce on the past few years. I think that it's important to not just treat these players as commodities that are moving from team to team. I think it's important to talk about memories. A lot of 49ers fans, I think, will really appreciate the time that Deebo Samuel put in wearing the red and gold. A lot of big plays, a lot of big moments. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, Deebo in 2021 put together a highlight reel that was about 20 minutes long, which, given how fast the football play operates, I mean, even a 76-yard touchdown is going to be gone within a few seconds. To be able to put together a highlight reel, it's 20 minutes long. As a football player, you did something truly, truly special. And I think that applies to Deebo Samuel's 2021 season and beyond with the 49ers. I mean, we could look at 2022 and the playoffs where he had that long 80-yard touchdown against the Seattle Seahawks. Then, of course, 2023 when he walked into Philadelphia and just completely silenced that crowd, touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. I mean, this wasn't just limited to big plays in 2021. Deebo Samuel was an impact player time and time again. John Lynch always tells the story of the 2023 NFC Championship game where he went down to the locker room and the 49ers were down, 17 points at halftime. And he said Deebo Samuel was just shaking at his locker. He was so upset at how poorly the 49ers had played in the first half. And he said that he knew that Deebo Samuel needed the football to make right in the second half. And guess who gave the 49ers a big part of their spark to come back against the Lions? Deebo. Couple huge catches on that first drive coming out of halftime that I believe ended in a field goal for San Francisco, but it really set the tone. It really helped get them on the right foot in that third quarter to come back in the football game. So we can sit here, we can reminisce. I'm going to answer some of your questions. Chad is asking, is there any chance at all that he stays? I get anything is possible, but he asked to get out. Well, the thing is that Deebo Samuel asked to be traded, yes, but the 49ers also believe that their optimal play is moving on from Deebo Samuel for all the reasons that I've been talking about over the course of the past 35 minutes. So when both sides think that this is the way to go, it's exceedingly likely that Deebo Samuel is going to be gone. I will say that everybody thought that Jimmy Garoppolo was gone in 2022 as well. He ended up staying with the 49ers. But there was a complicating factor there. Jimmy was coming off of shoulder surgery, and trading for a quarterback coming off of shoulder surgery is a very risky proposition. So nobody wanted to do it in 2022. And because of that, the Garoppolo 49ers reunion made sense. Here with Deebo Samuel, it seems that we're dealing with a healthy player, even though he was compromised, I think, at points of 2024, first by the oblique injury in week 2. It's really important, and this is big as far as Deebo Samuel's trade value goes. It's really important to remember that he had a great camp. He had a great week 1, bolted in for that rushing touchdown. He had over 100 receiving yards in week 2 at Minnesota, but that's when he hurt the oblique. Then he was out for the week 3 game against the Rams, right? That's when Juwan Jennings played at the Z receiver position and put up the best 49ers receiving game since Jerry Rice. So Deebo was physically ready to go out of the gate in 2024, but the oblique injury combined with the pneumonia that he came down with before that game against the Chiefs that later led to his hospitalization. I think it takes a while to rebound from pneumonia, especially as a high-level professional athlete playing a sport like football. I think that might have lingered with Deebo Samuel over the course of this season. And because of that, we didn't see his best football. But I still think that there is some left in the tank for Deebo. But the 49ers just see a stylistic difference here that, coupled with their financial situation, with Brock Purdy's contract coming up, just the potential savings of $17 million are too valuable, especially if the 49ers can recoup draft capital. They just don't have the financial framework to, in good conscience, give Deebo Samuel the extension that he wants and feel that they're going to be in a sustainable salary cap situation moving forward. So yes, Deebo Samuel's under contract, so there is a tiny chance that he stays. But for all the reasons that I explained, the two foremost reasons being Deebo Samuel has said that he wants out, and the 49ers are not interested in extending him, so they too would like for him to be out because they don't feel this is an efficient play anymore. Those two reasons make it exceedingly likely that Deebo Samuel will be traded, and it appears that that trade is coming quickly. Either the Washington Commanders or the Houston Texans. May even happen before the NFL Combine is over. 49 Lakers, one of those combo Lakers 49ers fans, gives the salute to Deebo Samuel. I know we've been saluting to Deebo Samuel here over the course of the past 20 minutes. Do I see the 49ers trying to unload Ayuk due to the cost of the contract and the acrimony involved? No, I think that the discussions are behind the 49ers and Brandon Ayuk. I think that they're focused on the future, and I think that they're not seriously considering trading Ayuk. When John Lynch was asked about that the other day, I know he gave kind of a weird answer because he pivoted to the 49ers needing to get younger. Well, that probably has something to do with Deebo Samuel in this case, right? Deebo going to be knocking on the door of 30 years old, but I think that what John Lynch was trying to say with his answer when he was talking about the 49ers getting younger and entertaining all trade calls is that they do pick up the phone several times over the course of the offseason, and teams have expressed some interest in Brandon Ayuk, but they haven't expressed interest at the level that the 49ers would need them to express interest to get the trade compensation that they would need in return for Ayuk. You'd be shouldering a ton of dead money now, and you'd be selling Ayuk at the lowest point possible. that is coming off of an ACL. Deebo's at a low point too, but he didn't just sign a contract extension. So you've got a whole lot of team control in front of you for Brandon Ayuk. With Deebo Samuel, you only have that one lame duck year. So those are two really different situations. And I don't think that there is enough acrimony left over from the contract negotiation for the 49ers to just want to move on from Brandon Ayuk. Got a couple of super chats. Thanks for those. From Edward Austin. What are you asking here? Thoughts on the 49ers seriously considering bringing in Deion Sanders and his family for the next 10 years before Purdy signs? I'm not sure. What would you want from Deion Sanders? To be a coach on the 49ers staff? We shouldn't overlook the fact that the 49ers last won a Super Bowl when Deion Sanders was on their team, winning Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, that's all great. Deion did a lot for the 49ers in that Super Bowl year. But I'm not really sure what you want the 49ers to do with Deion. Thank you for the super chat. It's well taken. I just don't know how to answer that question. But I appreciate it. So everybody else, you guys can answer, or you could ask your questions, and hopefully I'll be able to answer them. Do you mean Shedeur Sanders? Are you saying Shedeur Sanders, not Deion? Because you said Deion. So maybe you're talking about the family connection. No, I don't think the 49ers bring in Shedeur Sanders. Brock Purdy is the 49ers franchise quarterback. They will pay him as such. That is what San Francisco's working on. In fact, this whole Deebo Samuel trade, which might be imminent, the overarching context behind all of it is that the 49ers are building this team around Brock Purdy. This is the biggest vote of confidence that they could possibly give Brock Purdy up until this contract is signed. Obviously, that's going to be the ultimate vote of confidence, but the biggest vote of confidence you could make in the time being is constructing the roster around the quarterback, constructing the roster in a way that optimizes the quarterback skill set. And the 49ers have determined that Deebo Samuel does not optimize Brock Purdy's skill set. So they're building around Purdy. They're not building around anybody else at that quarterback position. Can I discuss the potential ramifications or the cap ramifications of a potential Ayuk trade? Sure, I will. I can open that up here on Over the Cap and put it up on the screen for everybody. There's a reason why a Brandon Ayuk trade is something the 49ers are not interested in. They will pick up the phone for anything, but in the case of a trade for Brandon Ayuk, there would be a lot to pay for San Francisco. I'm opening up the contract right now. So with Brandon Ayuk, you gave him a $23 million signing bonus, followed by option bonuses in subsequent seasons. The $23 million signing bonus is something that you have to pay for regardless if you're the 49ers. You've already given it to him. I get that the cap impact is stretched out over the course of the next several seasons for Brandon Ayuk. If you trade him, it all accelerates and it hits right now. In fact, moving on from Brandon Ayuk at this very moment would incur over $30 million in dead money for the 49ers. I get that with Deebo Samuel, and that's just from what they've done with the signing bonus for Brandon Ayuk. With Deebo Samuel, you've had all these restructures and option bonuses kick in. The $31 million there would inflate the cap hit, the damage in 2025 from $15 million to the $31 million. So you'd take on 16 more in damage. In the case of Brandon Ayuk, you'd be taking on 28 million more in damage. So it'd be even more financially prohibitive to move on from Brandon Ayuk right now as far as your 2025 space goes than it would be from Deebo Samuel. And you'd be giving up a whole lot more team control, and you'd be selling at the lowest possible price because Brandon Ayuk is coming off of a torn ACL. So it just doesn't make sense in the way that Deebo Samuel entering the lame duck year and a trade makes sense for the 49ers. Here's a comment about Deebo Samuel. Somebody saying he was too sensitive and driven by his ego. Deebo Samuel played a lot of good football for the 49ers. I mean, you could start nitpicking at sensitivity and, this guy was driven by his ego. He was a really good player for the 49ers for a long time. He's had a more successful NFL career than 99.5% of players who have ever put on an NFL uniform. So instead of, focusing on the negatives here, I think we need to have some perspective and realize that Deebo Samuel delivered big time and time again for the 49ers. Sometimes time happens and you run into a point where the partnership no longer makes sense, right? So many people are so focused on the thumbs down instead of looking at what the thumbs up has been. And I think in the larger picture, Deebo Samuel over his career with the 49ers, 6 years, 4,792 receiving yards, 1,143 rushing yards, 22 receiving touchdowns, 20 rushing touchdowns, massive play after massive play. Let's just appreciate what he's done for San Francisco and realize that business is business and nothing is forever in the NFL, in the not for long league, right? I think that's the right way to look at this Deebo Samuel situation. By the way, a little bit earlier today, I know I was talking about it on a live in the morning. The Rams were meeting with Matthew Stafford, and Matthew Stafford has agreed to stay with the Rams. The problem there is that we don't know the financial parameters of the new agreement. And we probably won't know, according to one of the NFL insiders. I forgot who it was. It might have been Schefter or Rappaport. So that we won't know the financial parameters until after free agency starts. Apparently, some of that is still flexible. So we won't know if the Rams got robbed here, if they made a mistake, or if they got a bargain rate for Matthew Stafford. We won't know until a few weeks from now. So I'll analyze that when the time comes. But until we actually know the numbers, we won't really be able to apply it to the 49ers' ongoing situation with Brock Purdy. Just wanted to give you guys the update on that front. John thinks that Deebo is going to be cut in the end. He says, I find it hard to believe the team would negotiate through the media. Lance, Jimmy, Christian McCaffrey were all behind closed doors. Ayuk rumors were for leverage in negotiations. Well, so they did negotiate through the media then. If you're saying that there were some rumors used for leverage in negotiations, that's literally negotiating through the media. He says that Deebo will be cut in the end, unless the 49ers find a trade partner, and there are many teams that have been interested. The 49ers need to, again, it goes back to the finances. They want to find a return that justifies them taking the larger cap hit now. If it's just I can't just say just a 7th round pick, because Brock Purdy, Jawan Jennings were 7th round picks. So every pick brings some value, but I don't know what the offers are right now. I do know that the talks have been heating up. The 49ers haven't divulged what they're being offered and where these talks have started. But they have negotiated through the media before. Every single team negotiates through the media. When John Lynch steps up at the press conference and says there's interest in Deebo Samuel, well, that's a media-driven negotiation, right? I mean, he's trying to get his message out there. You can't blame him for trying to get his message out there. And we've now heard from independent sources that a trade could indeed come over the next couple days. So we'll just wait and see what happens. Thanks for your comment. I appreciate it. Do we think the 49ers will sign another free agent linebacker if Dre Greenlaw walks? That's a good question. I think that even if they sign Dre Greenlaw, they might have to sign a free agent linebacker, because Greenlaw is a tricky situation. He played only 34 snaps last year. He didn't exactly check the availability box. I think that that's important to do. So I don't know, but it could be a position where the 49ers double dip, given how important it is for Robert Saleh And I think it's a definite yes on that signing if Dre Greenlaw doesn't re-sign with the 49ers. Back to the top, guys. The Deebo Samuel potential trade. This is what we're talking about. Matthew Berry says multiple teams are interested in Deebo Samuel. The Commanders are one of them. He heard that his Deebo Samuel rumor might be out of date by next week. A trade could be imminent. There are financial implications for the 49ers, but they obviously deem them to be worth it. And, there's one that's definitely worth it if Deebo Samuel is in fact traded. It's $17 million in savings. I find it interesting that the Commanders and the Texans are at the top of the interest list because both of those teams are familiar with Deebo Samuel's game. Adam Peters and D'Amico Ryans. Remember that Adam Peters drafted Deebo Samuel. We can also appreciate Deebo Samuel's impact on the 49ers as it does appear that his time with the team is nearing its conclusion. He was awesome over very long stretches of the past half decade or so. And I think I spent a lot of this show appreciating what Deebo Samuel was able to do. One question is, how much work do the 49ers still have to do on the receiving room, assuming that Deebo Samuel's gone? That's why I brought this up from the San Francisco Standard. They've got to get more guys in the blue in yards per route run. When this offense was historically good in 2023, the 49ers had 5 names in the blue. That means above average yards per route run. They were nowhere near as efficient for a multitude of reasons in 2024. Only 2 up in the blue. So they have to find a way to build a healthier and more robust receiving room. I think a mid-level signing is something that the 49ers might do. Darius Slayton has been a name that I've been looking at, somebody that could fit this offense, better fit Brock Purdy. But there are other names, and we can discuss. My Build Your Own roster on the San Francisco Standard is coming out next week, I think on Tuesday. So you'll be able to do all this yourself. You could check out the State of the 49ers series. This is the Deebo Samuel drop that we talked about against the Rams. This was the beginning of the end for Deebo Samuel with the 49ers. This was tough because this really, I would say the beginning of the end was probably Ricky Pearsall being drafted, but this right here on the field, we saw it very clearly after he had been calling more for the football. This was very emblematic of the decline that we saw in 2024. So I think the 49ers still have some work to do at receiver because one of the main reasons that we're sitting here is that they were the worst separating team in all football. The reason we're sitting here about a potential and talking about a potential Deebo Samuel trade is because San Francisco needs to become better separating. They're building a team around Brock Purdy. They're trying to be financially efficient with it. Trading Deebo Samuel would save them $17 million and it would bring them some draft capital in return. How much draft capital? Well, we'll have to find out. A trade might be imminent. That is what the report has been coming out of the NFL Combine. That's some of the intel that we've gathered. I know when I was in Indianapolis here over the past few days, there was definitely buzz. There was definitely some interest in Deebo Samuel. And now we wait to see if a trade will be consummated. Some crazy stuff has happened at the Combine as far as athletic physical testing goes. Be live again a little bit later tonight. So hit your subscribe button. Make sure you hit the alarm bell and be ready for more. Maybe the next time that we tune in, something will be done here regarding Deebo Samuel as well. But we have a lot to talk about regardless. Everybody, thanks for the support. We will talk to you next time.